Hello, good morning. Before I get started, I would just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're meeting on today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. Sovereignty was never ceded, and we still have so much to learn about community, creativity, and innovation from the world's oldest living culture. As the voice of God said, I'm Victoria from Disco Labs, and a lot of people in the room may know Disco Labs as a long-standing Shopify Plus partner, focused exclusively on custom app development for some of the largest brands on the Shopify Plus platform. At the top of 2021, we had 90 apps in production. We had things like custom returns management for Brooklinen, the logistics management for U-Foods, store credit for Bulletproof Coffee, and we were consulting on architecture and interesting projects for brands like JB Hi-Fi and Pinterest. So I'm going to talk to you today about our transition away from this structure to a product company. So why did we do that? Well, about a year ago, we had a third of our merchants using an internal tool that we'd built, and majority of our inquiries were for that tool as well. So we had Stamps.com using it for subscriptions, we had Drop and Harris Farm using it for saved cards at checkout, and we had Hasbro using it for pre-sales and crowdfunding. So we started to entertain the idea that there was something to this product. And after unsuccessfully trying to work on this product alongside our service work for a little while, in May 2021, we took on some revenue-based financing to buy out a significant portion of our schedule to work on this product alone. So at that time, officially, Submarine was born. What is Submarine? Very good question. It enables agencies, developers, and merchants to truly build composable experiences without compromise. So we'd been building a lot of these solutions for quite some time: subscriptions, pre-sales, crowdfunding, memberships, using a combination of from-scratch solutions and off-the-shelf apps. Naturally, not the best way to do it, so we built the best way to do it, but it was not smooth sailing. So I'm going to share with you a few mistakes we made in the early days, things we wish we'd done better and sooner, and then some changes that we made as a result. We continue to make mistakes, we will always make mistakes, but these are just some of the early ones about that we made during the transition. So the first one was trying to do all at once. As Amit said just before, he and I should probably do a double act, I think, touring with this talk, but we can discuss that later. Trying to do all at once alongside our service work. So naturally, the agency life clients took priority, and the constant context switching for the software engineers was a huge pain point. So we were never progressing as fast as we wanted to by trying to juggle both. We were also trying to do it all at once with a team of 12, what we now believe to probably be the worst size to be doing this. If we were smaller, if we were, say, a team of 4, we could have cut the cord to service work immediately and moved on over to quickly start generating that recurring revenue from our product. If we were larger, say 30 plus, we could have carved out an independent team to work on building that product to a point where we could sustainably move everyone over when we were ready. It is worth noting, though, I guess, that for us as a team of 12, moving everyone over and juggling both was a culture decision. So we're a people-first business. We were always going to be asking the engineers what they wanted to be working on. And naturally, a team of back-end engineers said, product, please. So they all worked on the product and the service work at the same time. So good and bad. Reducing from 90 apps to 1 was always going to be a mighty task, but we were far too lenient with our offboarding timelines. And that was for a number of reasons. One, we believe that everyone at Disco Labs had had a really wonderful experience with their hosting and maintenance of their private app, and we wanted them to have that seamless experience with their new app partner. That was difficult because there are actually not a lot of tech-focused app developers in the ecosystem, and the ones that are, maybe are not super comfortable taking on someone else's work. This had an added complexity because we'd built a lot of our private apps with internal libraries and gems that required heaps of hand-holding and education for new app partners. So it actually was more work than we anticipated it being, and people naturally, because we were lenient, pushed those timelines. So next time we would be similarly generous with the time that we give them to leave, but we would stand firm. That's our responsibility for not standing firm in that timeline, and naturally they took a little bit of advantage. Everyone's favourite word, accountability. So when we moved to product and away from that service work, we relaxed, and that was wonderful. And relaxation is not the antithesis of progress and delivery. I need to make that very clear. Relaxation in your work is super important, but you need to have incredible accountability internally. And we often did not have that. And internal projects in the early days took a lot longer than they should have. This was, again, because of a positive reaction to the change. We were excited about doing things better and iterating and having that creative ownership. But it was important for us to remember that iteration and shipping have to go hand in hand. So that internal accountability is something we continue to work on, but we probably didn't address it as quickly as we should have. And finally, the big mistake we made was decision making. So a good example for this is we had a client in the US, an early adopter of our platform, who was a huge brand ambassador and advocate for what we were doing. And they came to us and they said, we want recurring discounts across our subscriptions. And we said, great, we already know we want to do that. And they said, cool, this is how we want it to work. And we said, we've built it. What we should have said is, cool, we'll pop it on the whiteboard and let you know how recurring discounts are going to work in Submarine. We did not have a firm boundary of what was core product functionality and what was okay to customize. And that's understandable when you remember that we've come from agency. We'd been building private apps completely led by client requirements, right? So we should have stood more firm in what was core product and what we were comfortable flexing on. We're now repairing that, but we wanted to keep this early client happy, and we should have remembered that the decision-making power stayed with us. So once we'd reflected on those early mistakes, just those ones, plenty more to come, we realised that the changes needed to be made in these 3 buckets: process, tech, and mindset. So for our process changes, we didn't actually have to change too much about our cycles and sprints, right? We were already set up to work quite like a product company as an agency, which I know is very rare for agencies in this ecosystem. But we had a software engineer founder and a highly experienced technical director who saw the value in agile methodology for a team that were constantly building novel software solutions, right? We were already operating in that iterative way. So nothing really needed to change with the structure of our cycles, but what did change was the content. So we moved from client support to product support. So carved out this role focused on help desk, but more importantly, focused on feeding that help desk information back into our engineering cycles. We added a product-focused ceremony, which is adding company-wide visibility into our roadmap, but more importantly, creating a forum for anyone in the company, engineers, product management, operations directors, to bring product and company ideas and features to the table in a really safe environment. We doubled down on demos. So we're obviously already doing demos with our agile cycles, but we now spend far more time preparing for them. So in our sprint planning now, we say, okay, at the end of this 3-week cycle, what are we going to be able to demo to the team? Previously, we were getting 3 days out from the end of the cycle and going, oh no, what are we going to demo? So we're much more considered around what that demo means for the wider team. And finally, just formalising our quarterly evaluations of that roadmap, now using the now, next, later framework, which we've found to be really valuable. When it comes to tech, we were Ruby then, we are Ruby now. We are big fans. We will always be big fans, and we still believe it to be the best language to build what we're building. It also would have been insane to change when we had a very experienced team of back-end engineers building on that language if there was no pain point, right? What did change was our architecture. So then, in the first version of Submarine was monolith. We've now moved to a more distributed architecture, which is better for a number of reasons. One, Submarine is a complex platform. It's not a very straightforward sort of plug-and-play app. So we can have individual teams or developers working on separate parts of the whole service independently, but it's also great for scalability. So when we were building private apps for clients, we knew exactly what their high traffic periods looked like. We knew how many checkouts we needed to handle. Now, we're prepared for infinite merchants with infinite customers, and we can go for high traffic sales at any time. In terms of our actual tech stack, this is obviously just a couple of examples here, but in terms of our product and engineering planning, we were already using Shortcut, so it wasn't a matter of changing, it was a matter of just investing more in the product that we hadn't used. So it used to be called Clubhouse. If anyone has used it, we still believe it to be best in market. But for us, it was about just making sure we were really leveraging all the features of that platform and going all in on it. For our logging and monitoring, it was about scaling it up. So we'd always been debugging client issues, but now we needed to be far more proactive than reactive. So we added a few more tools to that stack. And finally, the newest one is Product Board, which we have just started using for our road mapping. Finally, mindset, which is the harder one to talk about because soft skills are always harder in a tech environment. But for us, it wasn't necessarily about what we were doing, it was about how we were thinking about it, right? So we knew we needed to change these three things in the way that we approached every client discussion, every internal meeting, and every roadmap review. So first of all, it was about owning our product direction. So with agency, as I said before, you get so caught up in what a client's requirements are, what their pain points are, how do I solve this immediately? But for us, it was about, we know what those pain points are, they're very clear, but the product direction is, when do we solve it? What's important to solve first? We don't need to solve it for this as a piece of a whole project. We're now a product, so we can solve it later and it'll still be valuable. Building for the long term is not just about the product, but it's also about the company, right? So for the product, it's about that scalability. It's shifting from the agency mindset of let's launch with an MVP, then do A, B, and C in phase 2, and then address all these things in a retainer. Now, our building for the long term is we're going to build this piece, this feature, launch, iterate, and then focus on the next feature rather than launching with something that's under where we want it to be. It's world-class every time. And finally, believing in our experience, which is basically just company-wide imposter syndrome, right? So it's the fact that we've been working with huge brands on really complex and niche issues for a decade, right? We've seen it all. We've seen more than an individual merchant has. So understanding that when we push back on a client, we know what we're talking about. I think when you have a lot of humble people in your team, you can sort of present an idea and then maybe they go, oh no, you're right, your way was better, I'll do it your way. So it's about backing ourselves independently, but also as a team. Obviously, we haven't perfected any of these things. We're not like, here's the silver bullet for how to transition from a service model to a product model. And so these are the kind of 3 things that we're working on at the moment. So the first thing is making sure that our engineering, our product, and our customer success people are all really close to the customer. So that we can seamlessly integrate that feedback into our engineering cycles. So we're not just having a customer success person representing the customer, we're all close to them. Keeping our iteration cycles really short. So we've just had a huge push for our new version of platform, and it's basically felt like a 4-month cycle. So making sure that we're sticking to that short iteration and that iteration and shipping are going hand in hand. We need to be better at that. And finally, I've put thinking about all our stakeholders there. So it's really easy when we're sitting with a product that's e-commerce, right, to think about the customer as the end user and to think about the pain that you're solving for the merchant. But what we need to add into that first step is the developer experience. We have been developers working on off-the-shelf products for a long time and complaining about them. So we now need to be thinking about all those 3 steps. It's the developer experience, solving a merchant problem that the customer is going to love. And we are sometimes really great at that, but sometimes not so great. So that's something that we're really working on over the next little while. The next little while, she says? Well, 2023 and beyond. Obviously, we have grand plans for scaling the product and scaling our business, but at the end of the day, I think, as echoing what Amit said before, that we are a people-first business. We always have been and we always will be. So the decisions that we're making, even if it's about process and tech and really tangible, quantifiable things, they need to be values-based decisions for us. It's going to be about making a decision that gets us closer towards the company we want to be, the kind of company we want to work in, and customers will come to us. People, merchants and developers will come to us because we have built empathetic and authentic relationships, and that's why we continue to come to events like this. Thank you very much.